Good evening, I'm your host Camelia and you're watching KiniNews. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim said the opposition is creating disunity among the country's multiracial community by playing up the issue of a non-Malay becoming Prime Minister. According to Berita Harian, he said the opposition always created an issue out of nothing to pit the rakyat against each other. Anwar said this when asked to respond to the police investigating Lim over his recent speech in the UK. He stressed that the post of Prime Minister will continue to be held by the Malays and there was no need for the federal constitution to be amended for this purpose. Anwar added that the federal constitution has rules and this is not and has never been an issue, so they shouldn't complicate things. He also reminded the opposition to not play up issues that could create disharmony and disputes. Previously, Bersatu's Wan Ahmad Fayhsal, Wan Ahmad Kamal had called on Anwar to introduce an amendment to the federal constitution to ensure that only Malays can become the Prime Minister, saying it could help restore Malay support for the government. This came after Lim raised the possibility of a non-Malay being appointed as the Prime Minister. Lim has been summoned by the police over the matter. Meanwhile, LFL has described the proposal by Wan Ahmad Fayhsal as textbook racism. Its director Zaid Malik said any such amendments would be struck down by the courts eventually. Human rights group Lawyers for Liberty has responded to Machang MP Wan Ahmad Fayhsal Wan Ahmad Kamal's suggestion for the government to amend the federal constitution so that only those who are Malay and Muslim can become the Prime Minister. In a statement today, LFL Director Zaid Malik said, "It is unthinkable and outrageous that a sitting MP suggests introducing something akin to apartheid by attempting to legalize racism into the highest law in the country." He said such an amendment would be struck down by the courts eventually, as legislating racism into the federal constitution would offend its basic structure. He also reminded Wan Fayhsal that Malaysia would have no moral authority left to speak out on the international stage, whether on Palestine or any other matter, if such an amendment is made. Zaid also panned Wan Fayhsal and Perikatan national leaders, saying the fear-mongering often stoked by this group has no basis in law. He also stressed that the position of the Malays and Islam cannot be so easily changed, as it requires the consent of the Council of Rulers to do so, as required by Article 159 of the Federal Constitution. LFL added that they condemned the introduction of any amendments to the Constitution that serve to introduce harmful and racist policies into our laws. They said the suggestion by the Bersatu MP must be immediately rejected and condemned by the Prime Minister and government. PSB Secretary General Baru Bian also commented on the issue. According to Baru, Sabah and Sarawak MPs would not support race restriction for the Prime Minister post. Parti Sarawak Bersatu Secretary General Baru Bian has expressed confidence that East Malaysian MPs will not support any move to limit the Prime Minister post to Malay Muslims. He said this in response to Bersatu MP Wan Ahmad Fayhsal Wan Ahmad Kamal, who had come up with the suggestion. He stressed that the federal constitution is very clear on the matter, as race and religion are not stated as requirements. Baru added that this was never one of the conditions that our forefathers in Sarawak and Sabah agreed to. He said if Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim were to amend the federal constitution, he was confident that Sarawak and Sabah MPs will not support the move. Baru also expressed disappointment with Wan Fayhsal for making the proposition and said he believed Wan Fayhsal is trying to politicize race or religion for their own agenda. Yesterday, Malaysia Kini reported Wan Fayhsal as calling on Anwar to amend the federal constitution to ensure that the Prime Minister post is exclusive to Malay Muslims. Wan Fayhsal was responding to Lim Kit Siang's remarks on the possibility of a non-Malay becoming Prime Minister. Under the federal constitution, the only requirement for someone to be Prime Minister, as per Article 43(2)(a), is that the person must be an MP who, in the Yang di-Pertuan Agong's judgment, has majority support. Meanwhile, to amend the constitution, 2/3 of the 222 MPs must support it. Sabah and Sarawak have a total of 57 federal seats, and there are 165 seats in peninsular Malaysia. Rafiz has invited a pro-Perikatan national TikTok user who uploads videos slamming the government and its policies to a question and answer podcast session. Economy Minister Rafiz has extended a formal invitation to a question and answer podcast session to a pro-Perikatan national TikTok user. In a post on Facebook, Rafiz stated that so-called influencers spreading baseless lies to their followers are among the biggest threats faced by the coalition government today. He said with the existence of social media platforms, they are free to spread their slanders and lies that do not portray the real picture and try to sway the rakyat's opinions on certain matters. He warned that netizens who spread baseless lies, as well as others who comment on such posts, could be hauled up by the police and even face civil action if the need arose. He said at the end of the day, hardcore supporters end up suffering, while their leaders live luxurious lives with big cars, positions and pensions. He said this has to be stopped, and the way to handle it is by political leaders like him facing the rakyat in a question and answer session. However, he said they shouldn't hide behind a digital identity which is abused to spread lies, as the person must be ready to face legal action if there are any slander. With this, he named a PN influencer known as YB Viral as the subject of his first experiment. Rafiz said his office has sent a formal letter to the said netizen to attend a podcast session tentatively scheduled for January 8th next year, or whichever date is agreed upon by both parties. The podcast, titled Yang Baka Menteri, will be aired live on Rafiz's social media channels. Rafiz wrote that if the netizen has the courage to fill up the invitation form and return it to his office, he will give them enough room to burn him and prove that he is the dumbest minister, as they claimed all this while. Isham has claimed that any UMNO member who criticizes DAP will be sacked from the party. He also claimed that UMNO had failed in their struggle for the Malays and Islam ever since they started working with DAP in the government. Sacked UMNO Supreme Council member Isham has likened party president Ahmad to a ship captain leading the vessel to its doom. He said they are going on the wrong path and it is like the captain of a ship steering the vessel toward an iceberg. In an interview with TV Pertiwi, he stressed that if they don't question the captain, then chances are that families in the ship will perish. According to him, decades of UMNO struggles for the Malays and Islam have been derailed after it started working with DAP in the coalition government. He said DAP talks about equality and questioned what they meant about it, as well as what would happen to the Malays' special rights. He added that from his observation in UMNO now, if you criticize DAP, you will be sacked like him. Isham was sacked from UMNO on December 6 for breaching party rules, including criticizing the leadership openly and labeling the party as DAP lackey. Zahid confirmed that Isham was expelled by the Supreme Council itself without the need to go through the party disciplinary committee. Wahab will be filing a defamation suit against a JCOM officer and Chegubard. This is after the two failed to comply with the 48-hour ultimatum for an apology and payment of damages over the spread of a video. Community Communications Department Officer Abdul Wahab Abdul Qadir Jailani will haul JCOM Training and Education Director Hakim Ramli and Bersatu Information Committee member Bajul Hisham Shaharin, also known as Chegubar, to court over alleged defamation. Wahab's counsel Faisal Rahman said that the duo failed to comply with the 48-hour ultimatum for an apology and payment of damages over the spread of a video allegedly containing lewd conversations. The video allegedly showed individuals who looked like former JCOM Director General Muhammad Agus Yusof and Wahab. Previously, Harian Metro had reported that Wahab had issued letters of demand over the dissemination of the video to the two. Fayhsal told Malaysia Kini that Wahab decided to proceed with the defamation suit due to Chegubard allegedly not replying to the letter of demand. He added that Wahab was also not satisfied with Hakim's response to the letter. Previously, a video of a conversation with a man who looked like August went viral on November 17th. In a press conference following this, August had claimed that the video of the conversation involving him was fake and edited by irresponsible parties. Wahab, who was also present, had claimed that he was made a scapegoat to bring down August by an individual named Mr. H. And that is all for me today. For more stories, you can go to Kinitv.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook for the latest news updates. If you'd like to support independent media, do consider subscribing to MalaysiaKini.com. I'm Kimilia. Thanks for watching.